I myself, I'm a chemical engineer. I worked in a aluminum manufacturing firm for about a year. Then moved into technology, went into manual testing to begin with, then automation, from there to performance engineering to leading client accounts and looking at the entire development cycle. From there to building solutions that had machine learning. So I've looked at how the one constant theme has been to bring in more and more efficiency, and automation has been that one common theme, irrespective of whether we are in the QA or whether it's in the coding. And automation to help make things a lot more streamlined for whoever is in the space of engineering, right? So that has been expedited with these kinds of tools now. In fact, we are talking of some use cases which are around code generation, right? And code review, some things about code generation, code review. So when I was talking about the RAG solution, right? So if we are able to provide, let's say for example, context of previous kind of the code that we already have written, the previous code that developers have written, it can read from it, understand how that code was written, and then generate the next bit of code, which is, if not 100% accurate, will be even at least 70 to 80% accurate. And that 70% of that code generation is quite good, because you're saving a lot of time in that efficiency, right? And you can focus your energies, you can focus your thoughts on something higher value, and therefore that's where a lot of the benefit comes in. And if there are agents that can identify, look for maybe somebody who's trying to hack into the code, agents that are trying to you can write agents which can try to prevent some of these hacks, or maybe even look at what other areas that you may want to add some workflows to your task and all of that. Then along with that RAG agent based use cases will be plenty. So we're just opening the Pandora's box around this. There's quite a lot. Okay, 7:39, quick time check. Should we resume?
Okay, sir.
All right. So we left at types of LLMs, right? So far we've only been saying LLM, but that's not the only. So there are, again, even within LLMs, there are different kinds of LLMs. Some are large language models, some are very large language models, which have the data sets on which they're trained go into trillions of parameters. If large language models we're talking about often ranging in billions of parameters, the VLLMs are in the order of magnitude of trillions of parameters. Then there are also some small language models. Now, why are these different kinds of models coming into the picture? Because the focus is not on just building large models and large models, because sometimes you don't need big, very huge models and the computational costs that are involved for solving smaller problems. If you're looking for maybe quick question and answer kind of a thing, or if you want to have very limited, you have limited computational power need and things like that, then you can go with maybe certain smaller language models too. They're easier to train as well sometimes, but they may not have the same amount of depth or the complex reasoning or the complex task handling which the LLMs or the VLLMs can actually do. Then there are fine-tuned language models which are for specific purposes that can be there along with a pre-trained model. And there's some edge language models. They are designed to run on certain devices at the edge of the network, or smartphones, or IoT and things like that. So there are different kinds of LLMs that are there, right? But when we say categories, right, now some of them can be proprietary models. These all different types of models, they can be either proprietary meaning a company has developed them and they own all the IP. Some of them can be open. Open means they're available open and openly, like Llama 3, Gemma 2 from Hugging Face and all of that. And you can develop, you can craft various kinds of tooling on top of it. But there may be certain limitations which these open LLMs can create. The truly open source, the difference between open and open source is when it is open source, whatever you develop on top of it, then you have to also agree that developers will provide that or make any kind of additional development on top of that also as open source. So there are, between the open and open source, there is that subtle difference there. And even within the open LLMs, what can also potentially happen is that companies might say that, hey, look, we will restrict you to a certain number of users on your platform and things like that. So there may be some limitations that at cap off that they may do. But typically there are these three categories in which they come in, right? Now, so far we've been talking about the size of LLMs. Now let's quickly look at a graphic where we understand what that looks like, right? So a Grok, which is 314, Grok 1, it has been built on 314 billion parameters. Palm 2 has been, it's a DeepMind LLM that has been developed on, trained on 340 billion parameters. But on the other hand, if you look at the larger ones, right, Ernie 4.0 has been trained on, it's a Baidu's model here. Ernie 4.0 has been trained on 1 trillion parameters. Gemini by Google has been trained on 1.5 billion parameters. GPT-4 from OpenAI has been trained on 1.76. But then Olympus, which is an Amazon LLM, and Claude 3, they have both been trained on 2 trillion parameters. Now, when the amount of training of the training data set and all of that increase, so they become so high, the learning ability, the handling of complex tasks, all of that also increases, right? But it also comes with a certain cost of or a combination of speed and quality and price, right? So if OpenAI's O1 preview, which the quality of the response is very high, which means it's been trained on a very large data set, it does quite a good job of responses. The speed is also comparable, but it's slower than the O1 Omni here. Omni, the quality may be slightly less, but it is highly performant, right? But then if you look at the price, because O1 preview may be one of the large models, the price is exorbitant for this model, right? So similarly, you'll see that there is always going to be some mutual give and take between the quality, the speed, and the price that each of these LLMs has. So when we talked about the types of LLMs earlier in the earlier slide, sometimes we don't want to incur such high cost as well. If we are the company that is hosting the LLM, we don't want to host, or we don't want to incur such high price. We don't want to be charging our customers with such high price too, right? The users. Then there will be some trade-off, either in terms of price or in terms of speed or quality or combination of all three. Now, think about all of these when you are selecting the right LLM, which is going to be a fit for the particular use case, right? In the case of Oracle, where I work, Oracle has, we don't own any of the foundational models. We have a partnership with Cohere, which is one of the best enterprise grade LLM. They have command set of LLM large language models there. So we work exclusively with the command set of models. Now the performance and the quality and speed and price, the price aspect, I forget it, because it's already Oracle has a partnership there, so we don't really get into the pricing aspect of it. But the quality and speed, it'll all depend on what is the size of that command R, the model there. How does it compare in terms of the quality of response and the speed? So those will all dictate what it is. So each company may have its own strategy and objective in terms of what they pick and choose depending on any of these three axes there, the quality or speed or price, right? So this is so far what we did. We talked about LLMs, right? But I was telling you about LLMs as being stateless application, right? So my vision of an LLM is, it's almost like a teenager. You have sent them to the library, you've read every single book, or you at least think you know everything, right? But then you need to be able to train these teenagers or this young person with a whole vast amount of knowledge in a way that is it's aligning with your institution's objectives or your organization's objective or the problem that you're trying to solve, the use case that you. So there is a lot of additional work that needs to happen in order to make this teenager into a highly seasoned professional, right? So think of this as the raw, think of this image here as the raw LLM. This guy, right, the teenager who's just come out of the library or just understood, looked at the internet. But for them to be able to convert into a seasoned professional solving the real world problems and all of that, it takes a lot of additional effort. And that is where all this prompt engineering, the RAG based use cases, agentic flow, all of that comes in, where we bring additional context, right? Even when you get into a new job, you don't understand all the concepts of the organization on day one. You go through a lot of training in order to get there, right? Something similar with our LLMs also, right? So with that, now what are the possible use cases in terms of the business? Across the board, yesterday even Priyanka was showcasing across the energy sector, the healthcare sector, for marketing domain, or high tech, telecom, whatever it might be. There are so many different kinds of possible use cases. I'm just sharing a few of these here, right? Lot of times the customer service automation is what is being talked about. It's a very easy, low-hanging fruit, because what's happening is a customer service, there is either somebody who's emailing the customer service or calling them up, calling the customer service guys. Somebody is trying to make notes of what's happened, what kind of issue there is, and all of it. So therefore, a lot of that content accumulation, a content generation kind of use cases come from the customer service automation. So therefore, that's why you see AI-powered chatbots and virtual assistants being one of the core use cases there. And there's a lot of work that's happening. In fact, just yesterday I was listening to a podcast where it said that Salesforce, Deloitte, and one other company, they're partnering in terms of the field service now. Field service meaning, let's say I have to jump onto one of the telecom towers. Then I see that there is something broken there. One of the equipment is broken. Now I don't know what to do there, right? I need support. I need to understand what kind of help manual should I look at. So what they're doing is they are coming up with this vision LLMs, vision large language models, so that you put on those goggles, you are able to look at that particular broken equipment and say that, oh, okay, this is equipment, whatever it is identifying that particular equipment. It is then retrieving the help manual for it, and with the help of the LLM behind the scenes, that translates or maps that image, translates into some text, comes back with the help manual and says, here is what you should do next as part of that, right? That particular equipment. And so there is, now you see how big of a difference it makes from providing. Earlier I was talking about entering the prompt or providing some question or statement. Now we're talking about the kind of evolution that we are seeing is, you can pretty much put on some goggles, you're capturing an image, that image is now used by the LLM and then coming back with a response. Now, in fact, this image also was generated by Gen. So most of the images that you see in this presentation, they're all being generated by the LLMs only. Content creation. I work in the space of marketing. I was telling you a lot of the content is created now with the help of generative AI. There's a lot of content generation now. Biggest users, newsrooms, all the newspapers, they would love to have generative AI help them with different kinds of content that is engaging, that is enriching, so on and so forth. So there is a lot of use cases around that. Social media, there's so many users, who will be thinking, what kind of caption should I put for my social media content? Today I posted something on Instagram. What kind of caption should I have that is really capturing the eye of the audience, right? So that content creation is important. Similarly, videos, even not just images, but videos. A month or 2 months ago, there was this whole video generating capability from LLMs as well that has come out. So you can create videos now. right? Analysis. I was telling you about the data summarization aspect of the LLMs. You can pretty much now look at a lot of data and do a lot of sentiment analysis. Now, in the previous years, earlier with machine learning and different kinds of, we had other kinds of tools. You also need to you had to plug in analytical tools in order to be able to generate analysis. Now, today with the LLMs, you can do a whole host of sentiment analysis and get some kind of trend forecastings and market research and all of that, right? Dynamic personalization. See, when a user comes onto a website, you can personalize the experience for them based on the previous the previous attempts that they were there on the website. You can pretty much personalize that. LLMs can understand what context, in what context, you know, the user had browsed in the past. Now, based on that, they can add dynamically, they can generate some recommendations for them. Similarly, content. Now I can see that, oh, this person has interacted with this news article. Okay, let me identify quickly, you know, what other news articles would they be interested in reading, right? So earlier it was all machine learning based recommendation algorithms, next best recommendations, next best product kind of, you know, algorithms that were used. But now with LLMs, you can pretty much, you know, you also generate what kind of, you know, content you can recommend. Similarly, process automation, risk management, innovation. In fact, even I was reading that Supreme Court, or in the Court of Justice, they want to have LLMs and use of AI to document, because every day, if you, I don't know how many of you have been in a court. I've rarely been there, but I've seen a lot of movies where they show there's one person who keeps taking notes. If there is a voice to speech LLM that is there, you can help somebody, you know, reduce a lot of those error making and content assimilation, generate all of that, come to inferences and so on. So there is plenty of potential in what different kinds of use cases. We just need to look around ourselves. Okay, I'll skip this slide. All I was talking about was, you know, telling some of these are the best LLMs or large language models today in the world. GPT, Gemini, Gemma, Llama, Claude, Command, Falcon, Mistral 8, DBRX 5.3, Grok. Some are not very well known, but you can look at a whole host of these. I'm sharing these. I'll share this with you so that, you know, you can take a look, explore some of these. Each of them comes with a link, clickable link. You can go to them. You can play around with those, test it out yourself, look at how you can call an endpoint. Right? Talking of endpoint, how do we build this, right? Now, there is a pre-trained LLM. Okay, let's assume that, you know, we take any of the pre-trained LLMs that are available publicly. Then I want to build an application where a user will send a query and I get a response back. It can be for something like, hey, tell me which section of the library is this particular book available in, right? I mean, even that a simple query like that, and we can pretty much get some response back. Now, here is where the prompt comes in, meaning the user is sending a very specific set of instruction to the LLM, to the model. That crafting of the prompt is important, right? How do we craft it? And in my experience as a product manager, right, where I see the biggest role so far, when we talked about machine learning, the traditional AI, we had to do a lot of write queries in order to send the data to the model, to the algorithm, right? But now, instead, here it becomes a question of how nicely do I craft my prompt? What is the idea of a very good prompt that we should have, such that I'm getting the relevant response back. So there is a lot of iterative process here. So I'll craft a prompt. The first time I will say, okay, tell me how to write a story about three brothers. LLM will generate a response. I'll not be happy with it. I'll tune it. I'll say, tell me how to write a story about three brothers who live together, and help me as additional, add some more context, right? So like that, we need to look at how do I make that prompt much more interactive, intuitive. And so there are certain ways in which there are certain best practices also about how do we craft the prompt, right? And that validation is one of the biggest effort consuming activities in the prompt engineering part, right? The model, if it's already there, connecting to the model, integrating with the model, and getting fetching the endpoint, passing the query, that is all becomes a very simple task. But defining how the prompt should be, that is very, very critical, right? Now, what if I sent a prompt saying, tell me how to build a nuclear bomb? I don't expect the LLM to come back and give me step by step. First, take so much of this explosive, 250 grams of TNT, this, or hydro, whatever. It shouldn't do that. So here is where the role of the engineer plays a big part as well in prompt engineering. So one is about the prompt itself. Second is around how much, what kind of guardrails do we build around the prompt. So now that I have a prompt, no matter whatever I write in that prompt text box, my LLM should always return the kind of response that I expect out of it. If I'm expecting only marketing related response, so even if I say, tell me how to create a nuclear bomb, it should come back and say nuclear bomb related marketing something, right? What it should not tell me the exact steps, or it should say, hey, this is not really what I'm intended to do. I can help you with some market. So we need to build guardrails. We need to have some checks for things like toxicity. Toxicity means, toxic words like that, nuclear bomb, abusive words, things like that. We need to build some frameworks, some functions which will wrap the prompt by saying, hey, here is how keep it secure, right? The other parts which typically we see in terms of any kind of application development around securing the data pipeline, sending only that intended user should send that data, the intended user should get the response back. So we need to build some guardrails around that. So that is very important, and that is where part of our regular engineering process, which that we typically see. But it's very important that the prompt is padded in such a way that only the intended response is coming back. And we talked about model parameters some time back. Those also we need to do some trial and error to see what is the kind of response that will be acceptable to me. That is why I said the validation of the response by modifying the prompt, padding it with some other frameworks around toxicity, formatting the query, formatting post once we receive the response. I want to remove maybe some extra spaces in the response. I want to remove some double quotes, things like that. So there will be some pre-formatting and post-formatting of the content and all of that. So there will be a lot of such things which you have to look at. Okay, but in a nutshell, if I have to say prompt engineering, then how do we build this prompt and generate a required response? That is what it is about, right? Okay, let's quickly spend 1 or 2 minutes on this. I was talking about a good prompt. We need to provide some context, acting as an expert on this, right? For someone who enjoys vegetarian Italian food and has 30 minutes to prepare dinner, could you recommend a recipe, including a list of ingredients and step-by-step? You could point at recipes you like from such and such. So you see, there is a context of who the persona is, role or identity. There's a context in how or what I really want to be doing. My prompt or query, which is a very specific question, could you recommend a recipe? I'm asking it to give me in a certain format, output format. And then I'm also giving some examples, like, pick up from something like, BBC's Good Food. I'm setting some context saying, hey, here is some example kind of a thing, right? So these are ways in which you can give a lot of context to the LLM so that you're getting very specific response. When we play with ChatGPT online, most of the times we give very, very generic kind of commands there. Give me a requirement, give me this, do that, right? Those are only going to give you junk output. So do not do that. It's a very big pitfall there. Okay, right? Tell me, help me with an ad, right? That's a very bad prompt, right? So if you say help me with an ad, it will only come back and say buy our product. But if you say very specific about, hey, I want to add for Nature Glow, which is a vegan skincare brand, all that, everything, the output also will be of that high quality, saying, it's unearthed luxury, sustainably, blah, blah, blah. So now you see how good this particular caption is, this ad. This is something which we'll typically expect from maybe a really good commercial or a really good advertisement, right? Like that, if you want a very good output, you have to spend that time in crafting a very good prompt also. So the prompt fundamentals are going to be very important. Okay, now What are fine tuning? Now fine tuning could be that, we talked about the right hand side of the application, which was about prompt and the query response here. Now, but if I have a foundation LLM, which has been trained on public data set, this is all unlabeled data set here for the foundation LLM. But I can provide a domain-based labeled data set. I can use that for fine-tuning the LLM to say, hey, here is the kind of information on which I want you to generate the responses. I can fine-tune it with some additional labeled and domain data set. That is one. Okay. Now, similarly, if that domain-specific data and all of that, it is stored inside a data source, and there is a vector database, right, with embeddings and all of it. I can look up from this source. This is different. I can look it up from this particular source and search and retrieve results. This is where the retrieval augmented generation. So I'm retrieving the outcomes from this database here and augmenting it with the generative AI framework. Then this is called a RAG framework. Okay, so augmenting means in addition to, right? Augmenting, that's what the actual word means. So I'm retrieving it from a specific data set, which is already a vector DB, and on top of it, I'm overlaying my generative AI model. So that is what will be fed to the LLM, and that LLM will generate the output back to this. So it will be very specific to this particular data set that's being shared. So this is where I was giving you the example earlier that if companies want to, or institutions want to have their own specific branding, they want to have their brand-based tone or content that they want to generate, or some specific type of music or whatever it is, then that all can be done with the help of the retrieval augmented generation here. Okay. Now, adding the next layer of onto the RAG system. So we just saw what that RAG system was, fetching data from a specific database now, or a vector DB. By the way, so this picture which I've drawn, this is a 23 AI, which is a Oracle's latest database that also supports vector searches. So that's why it's in 23 AI vector DB. I did not change that I didn't remove that from the picture here. But yeah, the Oracle's latest database already supports AI features like vector search and all of that. So you can pretty much use it from that. This is a big move from how the previous kinds of we've been talking. I know yesterday there was mention about MongoDB and a couple of other kinds of autonomous DB and all of that. So these are changes that are happening in the database space too, where databases also support vector storage, vector search, and all of these kinds of functionality, so that they're becoming more and more AI friendly. Okay. All right. So quickly, AI agents. Now we've gotten a RAG-based solution or a RAG-based framework which talks about saying, okay, I'm going to fetch specific data-related outcomes only, but I'm not satisfied with that response. So you can pretty much create an agent or an agent framework which will say, okay, what do I do when I'm not happy with the answer? Okay, we will specify some specific actions here. We'll say, go fetch or look up maybe a couple of additional sources. Go or check if the number of, so the agent can do multiple activities, or we can have multiple agents also. For example, if I said, give me 5 variations of this particular, give me 5 variations of ad logos, or sorry, ad slogans. Let's say the RAG system brought back only 2 or 3, and the agent has been tasked to check, am I getting 5 responses or am I getting less than that? If you're getting less than 5, then go back, look at the internet, and come back and add another 2 or 3 slogans that will complement, or that will make this solution complete, 5 responses. If you're able to find within the RAG framework itself 5 of them, then suggest. So like that, we can dictate, or we can set up specific tasks for various agents till there is a comfortable, acceptable solution that the owner of the query is getting it, right? Like that, if I want to maybe check, hey, look at who is the next person who's come onto our website. When the person arrives, set an agent, when the person arrives onto our website, perform this task, recommend this content, whatever it is. You can set up different kinds of tasks there. And this agent can talk to this RAG-based framework and say, generate this kind of content, suggest this kind, whatever it is, right? So like that, there can be various examples and use cases where agents will perform. This is very similar to the microservice bots that some of us may be familiar with, but the agents also bring the intelligence of the LLMs behind the scene. And they work autonomously 24/7. So that's where there is a lot of benefit from RAG AI agents. And this is why it is, yesterday also somebody mentioned the year 2025 is going to be known, or we are going to be looking at in the space of LLMs and chatbots, the year of RAG AI agentic workflows, because we can define various kinds of workflows with agents and RAGs. Okay. Quickly, I was mentioning about what we're doing at Oracle 23 AI, the database. It already brings all these vector AI search, vector search, and all of that. And mission critical workloads for AI are possible. So quite different from what we had known Oracle's databases earlier, right? There's just like Amazon's cloud and all of that, and Google Cloud. There is Oracle's cloud infrastructure provides Gen AI services. Within our own group, where I belong to marketing, we've already done prompt engineering based use cases. We've already deployed those prompt engineering based use cases, and our entire vision now revolves around, it's changed from products that are helping a seamless customer experience. It has changed from that kind of a thought process to AI first products. And I'm pretty sure that many other organizations are all using similar kind of things. I'm not trying to brag about Oracle here, but all I'm trying to say is that this is how organizations are thinking. That I need to have some sort of a cloud infrastructure set up. I need to have database that can support vector search and vector DB and all of that. And my products and the features and the use cases that I'm building, I need to have that AI first mindset in the product, right? Because that's where the world is moving towards. So while we have launched content generation and we are looking at some content summarization kind of capabilities, we are currently working on generative AI for internal productivity, code generation, test case generation, automated test case generation, things like that. Some test case transformation for older language test cases and so on and so forth. And we'll soon be working on some RAG AI agent based use cases, and some of it we'll also be filing for patents as well, right? This whole entire scenario, this whole landscape has, currently we are here somewhere between predictive AI and language generation and all of that, right? Where most of the use cases are focused on it. But author assistance, summarization, these kind of capabilities, all of them are quickly moving into agentic flows and context-aware agents as understanding what is happening around that, right? So these agents will start working on research. They'll do a little bit of research of their own autonomously. They will also provide some conversational capabilities. And then subsequently, as the agents, this whole agentic process matures, these agents will also be taking actions on their own. There'll be autonomous work and usage of tools. They'll also take certain actions saying, okay, mark this particular customer request as closed, or this particular customer complaint as closed. The agents can do that. Later, as they mature further, they will also be able to provide reasoning, saying, I will provide, just like what we say as workflow, or what we say as saying, okay, if else condition, right? Like that, the agents will also be able to reason to say that, look, because the customer came back and let's say customer service agent is there, customer service, they got a call saying this particular issue is not occurring, I would recommend that you close this ticket. It no longer needs to be open. So agents can also perform reasoning, or they can say that, hey, there are 3 possible solutions to this issue. I don't think the first 2 solutions are probably best, because there is this logic, and therefore I recommend solution number 3. So like that, these agents can help us with end-to-end workflow automation as well. So if up until a few years back we were talking about automation from a point of QA and automation from a perspective of you know the SDK end-to-end kind of developers and all of that. Now then it changed from there to RPA, from there some machine learning based automation. Now we're talking about RAG AI agents based end-to-end automation workflow and all of it. So keep looking out for these kinds of use cases. Because 2025 you'll hear a lot more around AI agents and all of that, right? Like I said, AI agents, they have context of they will interact with humans using human language. They can do that, right? And behind the scenes, they'll go back, they can talk to other agents as well. And we have to write this, right? So one thing which I want to also mention is these are not going to be fully autonomous. Okay, guys, you have to understand there will always be a human in the loop, human who will understand these responses or understand and try to figure out what is happening. And they are the ones, I mean, us humans are the ones who will have to take action based on that. We'll have to review the outcomes and say, okay, yes, I want to go ahead with this particular suggestion, or I do not want to do that, right? But these because end of the day, that liability of our final outcome or the final action, it lies with us. But agents behind the scene, they can understand, interact in that language. They can always understand the context. They're always on. They're unlike humans, where we probably in the organizations there is either a day shift or a different shift in the factories and all of it. These are always on, sensing and how to react, blah blah blah. They will also understand based on the environment. They operate with full autonomy, and they can also reason at some plans, and they can create action plans, right? So this entire spectrum will keep evolving, right? So if you look at that whole large language model landscape, if text generation, embedding, classifying, classification, knowledge answering, speech, these are the general use cases around which the large language models can operate today. These are the foundational, some of the specific companies that have implemented various tools. Then these are various models that are currently in vogue, from all the way from Cohere, AI 21 Labs, Anthropic to Bloom. Then these are tools that are built on top of these for different kinds of use cases, data centric tooling or vector stores or hosting and hub, playgrounds on all of it. And finally, on top of it, we slap the UI, end user UI. Now this is where we will say that, okay, I want a writing assistant, or search engine optimization management, or I want a generative AI assistant, or I want content creation ideas, right? Or I want some sort of data extraction from this Excel spreadsheet, or a conversational search. I want to look at what is I want to summarize my entire health documentation, or build automated flows, right? So there are different kinds of aspects of how this entire large language model landscape is changing. So I would say, guys, we'll be operating most of the times here, while research will continue to happen across each of these spheres, predominantly in these 2, 3, and 4. But most of the implementation will happen in layers, these 5 or 6. Okay, this more around the platform side of it. These are around feature side of it. Right now, I briefly mentioned that cost of computation will come down. If you look at it, this is this is one of those visuals which caught my attention very, very well, because there was a point of time. I remember the mobile phones back in my day. One single cost per minute, the cost was something like 10 rupees per minute or 20 rupees per minute. Today, that cost has substantially come down, and we do Wi-Fi calling with absolutely no cost at all. And for some of them, right, there is marginal cost, but you get the drift. Similarly, today in the AI era, we are saying that the cost of creation and all of that is dipping in the AI era, but at the same time, this whole cost of AI era, this cost is going up, but it will also plateau at some point in time, right? And the more and more we are starting to use and starting to look at these, the infrastructure cost, the computational cost, all of this will also come down. Just like how these are all plateauing at some point, this will also plateau, right? So it should not stop us from experimenting. It should not stop us from embracing the technology. It should only tell us that today the cost may be high, but depending on the type of model, whether it's a small model, small language model, or large model, those computation, we can manage the computational cost, and the more and more people are going to adopt it. And there are, in fact, some research, Gartner and Forrester do keep doing this research. They say about 64 to 70% of the business users already have started using LLMs and the chat GPTs of the world in one form or the other for their day-to-day use. Something simple as writing an email to your manager. Okay, writing an email. Forget about manager or not. Be it writing an email to your HOD, or writing an email to your professor, or writing an email to your friend. Sometimes we are stuck. How do I write it? So you write a prompt and you provide it, and you are getting that back. So we are, instead of going to, earlier at one point in time, we used to say, hey, Google it, as an way of saying search for this on the web, right? So now the same has become like, hey, chat GPT it, or maybe, use a generative AI for it. So like that, what is happening is the adoption has become very, very easy, because it's coming to that. The other thing which I also have been observing, okay, and I'm saying this purely from my experience because I've seen, we were building these predictive AI models for our customers. We were struggling with adoption. We were struggling with customer adoption. Why? Because like I said, the machine learning of the traditional machine learning, it requires a certain pedigree. It requires a certain skill set. You have to understand how to write a query that can feed the data. And not every customer is a data scientist or data engineer kind of a person. They're different personas. But the moment ChatGPT came, everybody is typing, tell me this, tell me that. And they are using AI. So everybody has become a user of AI today. Suddenly we are seeing that huge uplift in number of users who have warmed up to the idea of AI, and say that, I'm using AI in one form or the other, right? So that has seen an upsurge in the adoption of AI, so much so that every company has made it mandatory that AI will be one of their key investment areas, right? So it's important that we acknowledge that, and we are able to accordingly tailor our skill set, our mindset, to say that, okay, this is how we are going to move, right? And automatically the cost and all of that will get taken care of, right? Now, one interesting stat I also want to do. Sometimes these can also be a hype, and Gartner comes up with these hype cycles as well, as they call it, right? Or a fad. Sometimes, it can very well happen. For some time in the last 8-10 years, we were hearing quite a lot about big data, big data, big data, and then suddenly it fizzled out, right? So like that, there are some certain technological trends from time to time that appear, but then they fizzle out, or maybe it settles down. Okay, so there is always this hype cycle around each new technological trend. So if you also look at that, see the artificial intelligence, general intelligence, composite AI, the way to understand it, that these will plateau. Plateau means it'll come down and it'll be less than 2 years where it'll plateau. Blue is a dot that says 2 to 5 years, it'll take 2 to 5 years, 5 to 10, more than 10, and obsolete before it plateaus. So like that, look at this legend. AI foundational models will plateau around the next 2 to 5 years. It'll take that, right? Because by then there'll be plenty of them. It becomes commonplace. Like that, generative AI is also here. It'll slowly, that dissolution of, oh wow, generative AI, all of that, it'll maybe in the next 2 to 5 years it'll slowly come down, because everybody will by then would have understood what it is. They'll probably see it in action and all of it. So that whole hype will come down. And after some point, it becomes business as usual. It'll slowly become, business as usual. Our products have generative AI. There's all use cases are already there. So it's going to be part and parcel of our life. Just like how coding and all of that has become part and parcel. Smartphones have become commonplace and all of that. So this also will see that, right? So understand that hype cycle. We are already past this peak of inflated expectation. So if I say, probably 2022, 2023 was where this peak of that inflated expectation from generative AI was. All of a sudden, every single person was talking about it, LLMs and GPTs and all of it, right? We are past that. So make this part of your skill set, so that, and then your research and your study, because we will soon see that this becomes commonplace, and this will be an expected skill set across the entire spectrum, right? And I'll share this with you, but there there are going to be four fundamental ways in which this is going to be done. There's going to be application related workflow tools, all of that work that will happen, right, for Gen AI. There's going to be model related work that will also happen around different kinds of LLMs, and this is light LLMs to open source LLMs, model AI model as a service, multimodal, multi-stage LLMs and all of that. Then model performance and safety, and build and data related kind of things. There'll be generative AI across the spectrum. We'll see work happening on all the layers, right? Model at the model layer, security and performance and safety layer, the underlying data and build layer, and the eventually the UI or the application related layer. So there is going to be work on all of that, and work on 6 to 8 years is dark gray, light gray is 3 to 6 years, 1 to 3 years, and now this is all here. So this virtual assistants, some knowledge graphs, all of that is happening. 1 to 3 years is where AI code generation, embedded generation, all of this will happen. So like that, you see, you'll understand how the maturity of each of these across the four axes, you'll see that. And like I was mentioning, we should not only be thinking of LLM, because there are other kinds of models too. Like I mentioned in that field service example, there is vision language models also, which are a type of model where you look at imagery, you capture that image, and then you're able to base that, right? And there can be, again, different kinds of learnings within how that model learns. Zero shot learning is based on some unseen classes and all of that, which without that, right? This is evolving pretty soon. Something related, LLM, visual language models and all of that. Think of autonomous driving cars, right? Those of you, if you've been to the US or if you read the news, look at what Tesla is doing. Tesla has autonomous driving cars. Waymo is another one, WAYMO. They are another company which got licensed last year to have autonomous driving cars. No driver in the car. They will look at imagery on all sides. They'll have sensors. Based on that image, it will also come back and unsupervised learning of when to stop, when to accelerate, what is the speed limit, and do a whole host of other automated tasks from the vehicle. So multiple kinds of models coming together there a lot of time, right? Now that was all about LLMs, LLM and the visual language model. So there's plenty to look forward to and plenty to work on. But chatbots are, like I said, they're programmed on top of the LLMs, right? They're just a software which is designed to automate a lot of the conversations, help you with perform different kinds of tasks and all of that in an efficient manner, right? Now, these are currently in vogue. All our chat GPTs are all falling in that particular category, right? But quickly, if we have to look at the types of chatbots, right? There are menu-based chatbots, the rules-based chatbots, and when I'm mentioning these, I'm pretty sure you may be getting a picture of each of these in your head as well, right? Because from time to time, your e-commerce platform or somewhere where you have probably made a purchase, they would probably interact with you on text chat or text, SMS based chat, or maybe on WhatsApp chat or whatever it is, right? Your banks or some other kind of institutions may be doing that. So they could be menu based chats. There could be some rule based chats as well. Now, more recently, AI powered chatbots have come in, digital assistants have come in that will provide you certain specific kinds of responses and all of that. And there is a hybrid chat where you also can combine rules as well as you leverage some NLP and AI powered components behind the scenes. Then there are voice chatbots, which like IVRs and all of that, where they will assist you with certain actions and things like that. And now, more recently, the most biggest, popular ones, which are the generative AI chatbots, chat GPT kind of thing, where the contextual learning is much, much, much higher in real time. And that real time is very, very critical, because you are trying to these chatbots are trying to understand the context in which those questions are being asked, understand the context in which the nuance is being asked for, right? So look at all of them. This is an example of a bank saying, hey, here is, enjoy the power of chat banking. You can perform all these different kinds of items from the menu, right? Exclusive offers, some services, credit card, all that. ChatGPT, which was talking about, the AI, the LLM engine. Perplexity can also do that chat, provide some additional citations and all of that, right? And simple chat, rule-based chat box, which will say yes or no kind of answer, or voice-based ones like no. To speak to a customer representative agent, press 1. To, or maybe if you have this, press 2. Those are all kind of different kinds of chatbots which have been coded based on certain rules and menus and whatnot, right? So just example of what can be done, right? But the advent of these LLMs has made those conversations very easy. So just to take a look at this, I was mentioning at the very beginning of the presentation that if a rule-based chatbot is there, right, and it says, how can I help? Pick an option. I want to figure out what the order status is of my e-commerce order, or I want to cancel the order, or I want to return it. But the user says, I want to exchange my order, right? In the rule-based scenario, it'll say, I'm sorry, I don't understand your request, because it's been programmed to only take 3, either status or cancel or return. There's no exchange, right? And then Kyle is fed up now, he's frustrated and says, I want to talk to an agent. Okay, now no problem, the next available agent will be with you, right? And you are currently number 97 here, right? See the irony, right? I mean, you have to wait for such a long time. And I've been on some of those calls myself. I'm pretty sure some of you also would have been there waiting for the next available customer service agent or whatever it is, right? On the other hand, if you take the AI powered LLM based contextual kind of, these chatbots, then the same question, if Kyle answered by saying, I want to exchange, this agent, AI powered agent will, or the chatbot will understand that, okay, let's make it right. It's understood the context. So it's a very similar to a return and then reorder, whatever it is, right? So it asks the follow-up questions. What size are you looking for? And then in Excel. And the chatbot agent will say, no problem, I've ordered an, it's the same billing address and you already identified who the user is. You just send the order, blah, 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 and send us back the item in the package, which is the return. So there are two automation workflows which have been kick-started in the background. One is a order placing, and such that for Kyle, he doesn't have to go through a hassle of waiting for all of this, right? So it's efficient. You're probably saving a customer service agent quite a lot of time here, a real customer agent, physical one. You don't have to keep your end user waiting for so long, all of that. So see how seamlessly, how easily this can change the entire context, right? So that's why they're very, very powerful, conversational, they're personalizing it. This whole conversation looks a lot more personalized. They're aware of the context and they can automate the workflows and make it very, very efficient, right? Now, similarly, if you think about restaurant related chatbots, I want to book a table, right? Or you want to be able to order something from the restaurant chatbots or from Zomato or Swiggy or cinema chatbots where you can order tickets and buy tickets online, or a delivery chatbots which will say that, hey, this is what I want to do, right? So these are all rule-based chatbots as of today, right? But there is a ton of these kind of use cases where you want to do that. You can have AI powered ones. In fact, we work with some large customers, global customers who are in the e-commerce domain, luxury brands, especially luxury brands. They don't want to keep their customers waiting, right? They want to be able to solve it for them, keep their customers happy, and any business for that matter. They want to move towards these kinds of AI powered chatbots for the same reason, right? So common ones that we know, I told you, right? ChatGPT being the most used word today. Google Assistant, Alexa, these are all AI-powered chatbots. Siri from Apple and all of that. But in this space of chatbots, these are the ones which we typically become aware of because these are all mostly every individual interacts with them, either because we have a smartphone in our hand or we have heard about ChatGPT. But there are also enterprise grade AI-powered chatbots which are available in the market, right? And sometimes we call them as chatbots. Sometimes we call them as conversational AI products as well. Conversational AI products instead of chatbots, just to be able to differentiate those terms, right? So while these terms are very, very familiar, and we would have heard all of them. Now look at the next slide and tell me how many of them have you heard of? Has anybody heard of conversational AI names here? Cognigy.ai, Amelia, Yellow.ai, Core AI, Avamo, Isera, Boost AI. Yeah. Maybe very few of them, right? I see just one or two hands being raised, right? So these are becoming, conversational AI solutions are becoming very, very common part of the modern businesses from a customer contact center perspective. They're capable of creating and stimulating human-like conversation, because these are large organizations that they're catering to, huge customer bases. They want to support, even for that matter, even at Oracle, our customer service agents, and there is we cater to B2B customers predominantly. They need support, so we need to have a mechanism for them to log queries or service requests and all of it. And so there has got to be that conversational AI, conversational capabilities there, right? So most of the companies are tending towards looking at these kinds of conversational AI setup, which are on top of the LLMs, large language models, which are right. So that whole area is evolving quite a bit, and there are quite a lot of AI vendors in this space. The reason I wanted to bring it up specifically around this is because, like I said, we all have heard, and probably it's too cliched by the time we say ChatGPT, Gemini, all of that, right? But we don't hear about enterprise grade conversational AI vendors. And there is also a lot of competition in this space, okay? Because they want to be able to cater to that particular market. They want to use it for the customer care, for employee support, or even for internal natural language processing use cases like conversational analytics, understand what's happening, what are the kind of things that people are talking about, what do employees think about a certain topic. For example, if we have Microsoft Teams can summarize the whole discussion and provide a summary there. What kind of meetings are happening? So you have a lot of different kinds of these use cases that can come in, right? Now, while we spoke about all of this, right? Now, the one big topic which is, I don't want to scare you, but it's absolutely relevant that everybody has to think about is, are these chatbots secure enough? Are they privacy friendly? Right? This is something which we have to be very careful about. As much as people, the ChatGPT and all these OpenAI LLMs and GPTs have become very, very popular in a very short span of time, I don't know if you have been following the news with them as well, that ChatGPT or sorry, OpenAI was a not-for-profit organization up until 2019, when their CEO decided, Sam Altman decided that we want to become profitable, right? And therefore there were some issues with respect to that. That is one. So from an organizational perspective. Second, the company itself was also not was, but is continue to they are continue to be badgered by lawsuits. Why? Because a lot of these companies which are suing them are saying that, hey, you used some of our content without our permission to train the LLMs. Like I said, if you remember, I told you that the LLMs, large language models, have been trained on billions of parameters or trillions of parameters with a lot of data from across the internet, publicly available data. Now, the developers of these LLMs and the transformers, they all say that it's publicly available information from either Wikipedia or here or there and all of that. But the people who are actually publishing that data onto the web, they say this is our content and you need to check with us, or you need to pay us a royalty or some fee or take permission from us before you can use it for training it. In fact, even the author of the Harry Potter series, J.K. Rowling, she sued OpenAI because Harry Potter's the entire novel based, it was some of the LLMs were trained based on the Harry Potter series of books as well. So like that, there are different kinds of issues which are cropping up these days with LLMs and chatbots. So people are becoming extremely sensitive about it. Now, if you think about institutions and organizations where there is a lot of uh, personally identifiable information or sensitive information that is there, would you like that data to be used for training these LLMs and chatbots? I would not, right? I don't want that. In fact, do one experiment when you go back today. Right? And it's like I said, it's a fun, interesting area, but also slightly scary, because I entered in the chat GPT yesterday. Tell me about, give an introduction about Prashanth Ivaturi, or tell me about Prashanth, something like that. The first two lines were accurate. The next two lines, it said Prashanth Ivaturi is the founder of some other organization and he's worked on this and that. Absolutely, uh, hilarious, but completely untrue. Right? Now, I don't know where it's getting that data from. As much as there has been so much advancement in terms of accuracy of the responses and all of that, I don't know where that data is going in from. Was it my data? Was it somebody else's data? I don't know. Right? So we have to be very careful about thinking at the ethical use and ethical ways of training these LLMs, ethical ways of tuning the LLMs with the right kind of permissions and all of that. That's one. Okay. Now, imagine this other scenario, right? I mean, you see this is what I was talking about. Media companies have come lawsuit against OpenAI. It's one of the, this is as of yesterday, December 2nd. This is latest news from Canada. They're suing it, and they're suing OpenAI for it. New York Times, April 10th, 2024. New York Times versus OpenAI. They're still fighting it. So much so that New York Times has their legal team has asked employees within their company not to use any other LLM or chat GPT kind of, the chatbots, AI, conversational AI. Now, so this is something which we have to think about. I was talking about adoption of AI sometime back. As an individual, we may be able to use these conversational AI for our own personal usage, or maybe some institutional usage and all of it. But when it comes to a larger area, like maybe organizational use, institutional use, business use, companies become jittery because there could be a legal, ethical, privacy, security, all of those kinds of issues may crop up. So you have to be very, very careful in how or what kind of what are the LLMs doing? Are they sending that query and response? Most of the times, the LLMs will not use it for training. The query and response, that context ends there. They're limited memory also. But in some cases, if when you're saying that, that terms and conditions, you click on I agree with all of this, and somewhere in that fine line, somewhere it says your data will be used for training the model, then you have to be very, very careful about it. So read all of that. This is something which is very sad. A 14-year-old boy died after, there was a chatbot which was modeled after Game of Thrones, and the boy's mother is now suing the company because they didn't use proper safety and ethics. They didn't build it into the chatbot. Right. So it is very important that the engineering aspect of building these LLMs and all of that is one side, but how do we build a responsible LLM, a responsible chatbot? That's a completely different thing. So that's why I said I'll talk about a holistic piece about LLM and the chatbots, which is not just about the engineering part of it, of a transformer or an embedding or a vector, but once we are building it, we have to also look at what kind of outcomes are we working towards. So much so that these chatbots are prone to cyber attacks because they can connect it to the internet all the time, making them vulnerable. There is, like I said, they're a black box. I don't have any transparency to what's happening behind the scene. There could be unauthorized data sharing, which we don't even know about. There could be some scams or phishing. Sometimes, it may look like a chatbot, but it may be a complete scam. So beware of some of these kinds of things also, elements, right? They're right in our faces right now with Gen AI and LLM and all of that, but be very, very careful. And that's why some of the innovations that organizations bring, they may appear to be slow from a B2B perspective or an institution to institution perspective, even at a government level. I was there at the Telangana Global AI Summit a couple of months ago. The government is trying to understand what are the real use cases where they can secure in a safe way, trustable way, implement all of these solutions, be it chatbot, be it any other LLM kind of solutions there. So it's not just about implementing a solution or identifying it quickly and say, hey, I want to have this LLM, I want to have Gen AI use. No, it's not that. You have to think about overall picture of what it is, what the outcomes are going to be. And you have to protect your privacy when you're using it. I urge, especially a lot of you who are probably, have not used these in the past, be discreet about it, opt out of data collection. You don't have to share your data all the time. Log off after this, because I said, there is very little context that the LLMs can store. They're already so huge, such huge models. They can only work with certain number of tokens, 4,000 or 2,000, whatever it is, right? So they can only store some amount of memory in. So if you log off, it'll lose that context also, right? Delete the cookies and history, or review some of the privacy policies and provide only essential information to these. Otherwise,
Sir, you are muted, sir.
I think this happens after a specific time.
Just 1 minute before, sir. Just 1 minute.
Okay. So, yeah, so I was talking about governance for LLMs and all of that, right? So there is different levels of governance. When we talk about governance, there is, like I was saying, Telangana government or Andhra government or any of the state government, central government, they will have a larger governance framework and a governance policy for AI, Gen AI, all of that. That's not what I'm talking about. That Gen AI, whatever AI governance that the government sets, that's more about where the data resides, how the data is being used, what kind of fair practices and whatnot. But for LLMs, just like how we do it for machine learning models and all of that, there has got to be data governance. What kind of data are we passing? If it is garbage that we are training the LLMs on, then we can only expect garbage responses back. Right? If we are not training these on factual, accurate data, then it's not very good. So the data governance is very, very important. So there has got to be governance around what kind of data the LLMs are being trained on. Then there is model governance, saying that the models are being developed in an unbiased way, transparent, fair ways that that these models are being done. Otherwise, your LLMs are bound to generate responses in a certain way. Especially, I don't know how many of you were following the US elections recently, but there was some talk about how AI was steering the narrative towards either Republicans or Democrats and all of that. Not a lot, but there was some noise in between. And they're expecting that by 2028, when the next election happens, after Donald Trump completes this term, there is, by that time, the advent of generative AI, the advent of content creation, the narratives will change so much in the artificial intelligence and the artificial general intelligence area, that it can even swing elections towards one party or the other. So we have to understand that, the governance of how the models are developed, governance around how the models are being used, both of them have to be transparent, explainable, fair, and all of that, right? Content governance also, and similarly risk management. So content generated by LLMs is accurate. Funnily, in one of my product management colleagues, he moved to a different organization. So last year he was asked to write the business use case for a new feature that they were going to develop. He said, wow, let me show how quickly I can do this. Let me write the requirement. I will go to Gen AI. I will use ChatGPT, and he came back with the entire feature requirements and all of that. And when he presented it, there were so many questions that were put across to him that he realized that ChatGPT had given him inaccurate content around that particular feature, and he was embarrassed in front of his leaders. He had just joined that organization. He wanted to showcase how efficient he was, but unfortunately, it boomeranged on him. So it's important that not only are we using the content generation capabilities from the LLMs, but we also have to make sure that these contents that it generates are accurate, relevant, and compliant with all the relevant laws of the business or the government or whatever it is, right? And so we have to be aware of that. And finally, risk management related governance, right? You have to understand what kind of biases can there be. You have to put in measurements and controls around the LLMs and the outcomes of them to understand, are these responses accurate enough, or do I need to tweak some parameters? Do I need to go back and fine tune it from time, just like machine learning models that we work with, right? So that is what is happening now. These chatbots also in this age, like I said, now that governance aside, the chatbots are also evolving quite a bit. Today, there is some level of context understanding that is there, but more and more, the research is being performed around natural language understanding of the chatbots. Okay, they can understand human language. Earlier, it was NLP. If you think of Amazon's Alexa, Alexa was looking at it was understanding voice, and I've seen different versions of Alexa. I used to live in the US about 10 years ago. At that point in time, Alexa was only able to understand the US accent. And if I were to provide maybe a task, or if I were to ask a question, Alexa would not understand it very clearly. But since then, I've seen how much change Alexa has had in terms of the natural language processing and understanding, combining it with far more powerful AI models in the background, that it's able to understand dialects now. It'll ask me in Indian pronunciation as well sometimes, right? So there is that whole change from voice to text conversion from NLP conversion and natural language understanding have been combined, that these are becoming more and more powerful in how they are operating. There's continuous learning, personalization, multimodal interfaces. This is multimodal, we didn't touch upon too much today, but this is another aspect where there's a lot of work going on. People, when I say, for example, marketing itself, the example that I give, right? Marketing is not just about writing an email or putting together some subject line or some body engaging, whatever, right? If you look at, for example, if you have, I don't know if any of you have seen maybe again, I'm going back to the Swiggy and Zomato because they're more into B2C space. Swiggy and Zomato's emails they come along with not just catchy subject line and catchy email body, but there is also lovely content, either a video or an image or something like that, right? Now here is where the multimodal interface and multimodal chat becomes very important, that when we are providing a prompt or a text chat saying, I want a email marketing campaign for boring Tuesdays, I'm just making it up, right? Tuesday evening dinners, right? Then I not only should get the email content in writing saying this is what it is, it should also be funny enough to for the people to be engaged. I also should have a nice little picture which goes hand in hand with the branding of Zomato or Swiggy or whatever it is, in that same color coding and that brand imagery, whatever it is, and also should have a small video or some ad from the. So with one single prompt, I should be able to generate multimodal kind of outcomes as well. Voice recognition, image recognition, audio recognition, whatever. I mean, there can be multimodal interfaces that should work. It should be able to recognize all of those kinds of things. It has, so interfaces also have to change accordingly. So there is one part of input, multimodal input, voice and text and speech or whatever it is, in image or video. The other side is the multimodal outcomes also, right? So like that, there is a whole lot more on this, right? Now, should you apply to every single use case? I'm coming to the end of the presentation, but I'd ask you to think about, this is one key thing to think about. Where do you want to apply what kind of use cases do you want to? The biggest pitfall to avoid is don't go with any kind of saying, hey, I can use this LLM here. First of all, identify the problem that you want to solve. Is that problem worth solving? Is that problem not solvable by any other means? Can a regular automation or a piece of code write it? Because that will probably have lower your cost or lower the implementation time, or how many times is it going to be used, all of that, right? Versus, should this be solved only with the help of LLMs or the chatbots or things? So you have to identify where is that use case that you want to apply the LLM. What kind of problem do you want to solve? Yesterday, there was an example of a radiologist, right? A radiologist trying to look at making life easier from a healthcare perspective. If I can use LLM to be able to understand what's there in the X-ray, then that's something which is very important, because the human eye cannot probably find what the issue is. Something like that, right? So identify the use case, and that's the most important aspect. Then perform a feasibility and a desirability study. Do people even want this kind of a solution in the first place, right? For the problem that we want to solve. Only then proceed with your applying the use case, right? Now, there's a lot of different kind of foundational large language model stack which is there. I'll share this with you as well. But and this is why I said at the beginning that because there are so many different kinds of models and so much work happening in this space, by the time we come to the end of this whole presentation, it may quite be possible that that things would have changed. And people are finding all kinds of good, bad, ugly, weird, fun, different use cases for using LLMs and chatbots. LLMs, especially, those of you who are on social media, TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, you have seen that the face changes. Gen AI can replace your face with somebody else, right? Those kind of things. Or they can create a 3D model of somebody. So much so that, and then please do not take any offense. I'm not, this is nothing to do with any religious sentiments or any personal beliefs or spiritual things. It's more of just an example that I'm quoting, that just yesterday I came across one piece of news that in Switzerland, in the place called Lucerne, there's a St. Peter's Church that instead of having a priest sitting in the confession box, they've, as a thought experiment or some sort of a experiment that they wanted to do, replace the priest with an experimental AI installation of Jesus Christ. Okay, people can interact, they can ask questions, get some spiritual answers from an AI-based avatar of Jesus Christ, right? So that day is not far away where we will probably be like, in some of the Terminator movies or whatever it is, where you'll be looking at some avatars in front of you, having a conversation with them, right? Like that. So there are quite a lot of interesting use cases which people are coming up with. So don't restrict yourself to what are the current use cases, but you can, if you think of it from a completely out of the box kind of thinking, you'll see a lot of that, right? That's one. Another example I want to give. Recently, there was this movie called Vvit, Rajnikant, Amitabh Bachchan, and a few other big star cast movie, right? I saw it in Telugu, okay? And as I was watching the movie, one thing caught my attention really well was, whenever I've looked at movies that are dubbed in a different language, there is usually the dubbing artist is from that particular language only, right? However, in Vvit, when I was looking at the dubbing for Amitabh Bachchan, I felt, wow, this guy, whoever they have picked, they have such close similarity in tone and the speech and all of that to Amitabh Bachchan. So I started looking up for who is that artist who's done dubbing for Amitabh Bachchan in Telugu with a similar accent and similar kind of intonation and hi, all that, right? So I was astonished. And when I did a bit of digging, I realized that they used AI, generate the natural language processing behind the scenes, to be able to generate. So again, here is an example of how LLM, the NLP combination and all of that can be used for a multimodal thing for a AI. So like that, don't stop at any one particular text-to-text kind of LLM work or text-to-speech or whatever, but look at different kinds of things. I'll give you some resources here. Zapier, it works with it helps create automated workflows with AI. Replit can create an entire website for you with that. And look at some of the playground. So each of these large LLMs, be it Claude or Cohere, ChatGPT, Gemini, they all have what they call as playground, where you can tinker around with all those model parameters, different prompts, different kinds of the LLM versions and all of that. And that way you would be able to get a much better handle on the entire LLM and chatbot creation world there. Right. So with that, quick recap. We looked at what the LLMs are, introduction to them. We looked at what the strategic value of them, how do they work, some applications as well, recent advancements, some fun, weird, different kinds of applications of them. We looked at a few tools and platforms that use the LLMs as well. And then we looked at the challenges there and how things are moving in the future. Right now, there may be certain things which may not have gone in the same sequence back and forth as the story was unfolding, but we covered pretty much all of these different aspects there. If there was any specific topic that we did not cover, or maybe there are questions, we can take them. But conscious of time, I want to be able to leave the last 2-3 minutes for maybe a quick Q&A and see if there's anything that people want to ask. And like I said, if even if beyond the session, if you want to do something, then feel free to reach out. If I can't answer it, I will have one of my members from the team answer this question, right? But don't write your dissertation using these LLMs and don't do that.
Excellent presentation, sir. Marvelous.
Thank you. No questions? Seems like everybody's hungry, either to learn more about it or hungry in general. No, but like I said, in jokingly when I was saying that, wait for the day when chatbots and these LLMs can actually teach some of these courses or replace me from a presentation perspective. And by the way, like I said, some of the presentation content today that I showed you, just because it was around LLMs and chatbots and all of that, I also leveraged LLMs and chatbots to craft some of the content today, right? And in fact, I experimented with a few different kinds of materials too. There's a slide AI.AO which allowed me to put my slides in a different kind of templates. So I played around with that. So that whole canvas is brimming with various kinds of ideas. So yeah, go out there, play with a lot of these kinds of things and see where you land, right? And I thank you once again. We're on the top of the hour there, almost 9 o'clock. So those of you, if you have captured the contact details, you can, fair enough. If not, I'm sharing the QR code one more time. You can point your camera to the QR code to save my contact for getting in touch later on. All LinkedIn and my social media handles are all provided there, so you can we can be in touch.
Thank you, Prashanth Garu, for such an enlightening session on advances in LLM and chatbots. Your deep insights and practical perspectives have provided us with a clear understanding of advancements in this rapidly evolving field. The examples and use cases you shared will undoubtedly inspire participants to explore and innovate further in AI-driven technologies. We truly appreciate the time and effort you have taken to share your knowledge with us today. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. The pleasure and the privilege is mine, ma'am.
Thank you so much, sir.
No, ma'am. I said it's my privilege. Because, see, like I said, I've come from a chemical engineering background. And like yesterday, Priyanka was alluding to, if we from a non-computer science, non-technical background can pick up and learn so much, I don't think it's difficult for anyone else also to do that. You just have to be there with an open mind, and you'll be able to do really well in the future. So I wish you all the very best, to all the students and the faculty together, because this is an area where we should spend, and I think India should become the AI capital or for the world.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Now I request all the participants to switch on your cameras for a group photo for today. Sudha Kishore, sir, I request you to take the shot. Prashanth, sir,
Yeah.
Can you please stop sharing your screen?
Oh, yeah.
Rameswar Rao, sir, please switch on your camera. Rajalakshmi, Avinash
Okay,
garu.
madam.
Sudha Kishore, sir.
Ma'am,
I
done,
will
ma'am.
be-
Yeah, done.
Okay, sir. Okay.
I hope it was useful for everyone. Because I've shared from my perspective of what we've done, how we've learned. If there's anything else that you have probably not we didn't talk about today, then we'd be happy to come back in. But I love this experience of sharing my knowledge with all of you. I'm deeply grateful for all of that.
Okay, sure, sir.
Okay, as we come to the conclusion of today's program, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our resource person, Mr. Prashanth Kumar Ivaturi, for sharing his expertise and enriching our understanding of LLMs and chatbots. Your session has a valuable addition to this FDP, sir, and we are grateful to your contribution. I also want to thank all the participants for their active engagement and enthusiasm throughout the session. Your energy and curiosity are what make programs like this successful and impactful. Looking forward to seeing you all in the next session tomorrow as we continue our learning journey. Wishing you a pleasant evening ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, sir.